Lewis. I know yesterday you were saying to us you needed some magic, or I think there's a quote saying you said you needed a brain transplant to get on top of this car, but it really seemed to come alive for you in that second stint towards the end there. Was there a point where you did feel comfortable in the race today? No.
There wasn't 1 second, no.
So how hard is it then? What are you dealing with in the car, and how much work is there to do?
Clearly the car is capable of being P3, so Charles did a great job today, so I can't blame him on the car.
You don't have any idea why it's just not happening for you?
No.
All right, thank you. Sorry.
Thanks. Oh, that makes for tough listening for Ferrari Lewis fans all over the world. He didn't feel comfortable at all in that car. How do you explain that?
Well, Fred summed it up. He said it's a bit up and down because there was a time we talked about it in commentary where he was in the mid 1 minute 32s, which was bang on the pace. But he ended up 31 seconds behind Charles Leclerc. His teammate obviously had a little bit more traffic because he was further down the grid, so you can take some off for that. But it was up and down. I struggle to buy into he doesn't understand the car. It's a new car. Here we are knocking on the door of May. And they've had all the pre-season stuff and all that. So I just think Lewis hasn't gelled with this car, and I don't think he's going the right way on the setup. We know Lewis has I know from things I've heard from Mercedes about how Lewis likes the car in a certain way. Obviously can't get the car there where he needs it. So it's difficult days, but what's a bit odd is all of a sudden he was right there.
Absolutely, but in fairness, just going back to your point about not, taking a while to bed in with the team or not, Carlos was just here telling us how proud he was to make things work after coming into round 5. It can take half a season, can't it?
Yeah, okay, but it took Ollie Bearman a day last year here. But then he wasn't relearning a car, he was just getting in and learning a car. But, Antonelli's got used to working with Bono quite quickly and working with that car, but he did a lot of testing last year. I'm struggled to buy into that, honestly. But we know Lewis is better, Lewis is faster than that. So something's not working, something's not gelling there.
Well, something did work for his teammate today. How impressed were you with how long he went on the first stint?
Incredibly impressed, and it seemed to just come alive for him in the race, and I think they touched on it a lot. I think they're underperforming in qualifying, and that's kind of the opposite of what we've seen in a Ferrari a lot of the time. Is normally they qualify really well, but they don't have the race pace to match, and now it seems to be the opposite. That said, I think, he had a great race, especially at the end of the stint when we thought Lando was going to come on strong on the medium. He had a bit to respond with, and I think that's a mark of a good intent for the rest of the year, especially if they've got some upgrades coming maybe later in the year as well.
And we are hearing that there's an upgrade package for Imola, which will be music to the ears of all of them, providing, of course, that Lewis can make it work by then.
Yeah, the problem you've got these days, the regulations are so mature that finding a tenth or two is hard, but everybody's finding a tenth or two. So if you want to close the gap, it's really hard at the moment with cost cap, with relentless racing and travel, with the 2026 massive changes, racing towards them as well. So they'll all have one bite of the cherry, but Mercedes and Ferrari need not only to get an upgrade, they've got to jump a tenth or two as well, and that'll be really hard to do.
How impressed were you, though, that Charles was able to hold off Lando for that podium, the first of 2025 in a Grand Prix?
I loved it from both of them. I thought they both had in fact, full respect to anybody out there today, because this is a brutally fast street circuit, and anybody who got to the end of that without tearing a wheel off it, I tip my hat there too, because it was, and you could see how hot they were at the end of it. But when we saw Leclerc and Norris on those final few laps just hustling the car they were going for, I loved it.
Yeah, they really were. Charles had a lot to contend with. You said yourself, they all look exhausted.
They looked exhausted, and we heard Charles mention heavy steering a couple of times, and that's only worse when you're at a high-speed track. So I think it would have been incredibly physical for them. We saw how they looked after the race. Combine that with the mental capacity that's required of this track, it's hugely impressive. As Martin said, not to make a single mistake. I think, it really shows props to them to that level, especially a track like this.